In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 298 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah?
I'm actually having a much better week than I had last week.
So you're all healed?
Yeah, for the most part.
Good.
For the most part. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Sandy Blaisley, who I talked about last week, but I missed the fact that she came out higher than our highest level, so I wanted to give her props for that.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy.
Katie Foster.
What's going on, Katie?
Lauren Campbell.
Hey, Lauren.
Taylor S.
What's going on, Taylor?
Samantha Miranda.
Well, appreciate that, Miranda.
Amy Nell.
What's up, Amy?
James Cooley jumped out at our highest level.
Hey, there's James.
Sammy McKenzie.
Hey, Sammy.
Carrie Wooster.
Well, appreciate that, Carrie.
Jane Seacrest.
What's going on, Jane?
Megan Davis.
Appreciate that, Megan.
Kim Hunter.
Hey, Hunter.
Christine Olean jumped out at our highest level.
Well, appreciate that, Olean.
Taylor Matta.
Ooh, Mata.
Clarissa B.
Hey, Clarissa.
Joseph Woodman.
What's up, Woodman?
And Randy Corey.
Well, appreciate that, Randy.
Yeah, appreciate all the new support. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Chris Pollard.
Hey, Chris.
So appreciate the new support, the continued support. Gives us the first time, maybe since 2017, that we haven't had any new PayPal donations.
That's strange.
It is strange, but I get it. The economy's rough right now, man.
Is.
So no PayPal donations in this episode. We have a lot out right now. We put out a brand new Patreon episode on Saturday. We're headed back to the 40s to talk about murderer, rapist, and burglar George Zvek, who was known as the Aspirin Bandit.
Yeah, it was an interesting case.
It was. The guy had some tactics that he used to gain entry into people's houses. He was a brutal guy.
He was a brutal guy.
No doubt about that. And then on Unsolved this week, we're talking about Honey Malone.
Yeah, we're headed to Georgia and the Atlanta area. 18-year-old young lady murdered. And we will dive into the who, why, when, where, and all that other good stuff.
So that's out right now. Definitely make sure you check it out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
And we are only 2 episodes away from the big 300.
Wow, are we going to have a cake?
Yeah, no cake. But a lot of people online are trying to submit their guesses as to what 300 is going to be.
It's going to be a good one.
So far, nobody's got it right. But in this episode, we're talking about Massimo Bossetti and the murder of Yara Gambirasio. 13-year-old Yara Gambirasio went missing one night after walking to a gym less than half a mile from her house. Her body was found 3 months later in a field just a few miles away. Investigators found male DNA on her body, but they couldn't find a match. The police began what was called the most extensive DNA testing program in Italian history. It took 3 years and almost 20,000 DNA samples, but they eventually found Yara's killer. So we're headed to one of your favorite countries, Italy.
Well, I love Italy. It's a beautiful place.
I know. I don't know why you have a French accent going on there, but I know you love the people. You love the food.
I do.
You love the architecture and the history and all of it.
Everything. I'm a big Mediterranean fan.
I am too.
Yeah.
I eat kind of a Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
So Yara Gambirasio lived in a town called Brembate di Sopra, which is in northern Italy. The town is about an hour from Milan and has a small population of about 8,000 people. Yara's parents are Fulvio, an architect, and Mara, a teacher. Yara was one of 4 children. She had an older sister named Kiba and 2 little brothers, Nathan and Joeli. So, we're in Italy. There are going to be some names of both individuals and places. I'm going to do my very best. As I always do, I'm not always 100% correct.
But I'm here to help you.
And you normally do a fantastic job. But Yara went missing on Friday, November 26, 2010. It was a cold, snowy evening. She left her house at 5:15 p.m. to go to her gym, which was less than half a mile from her house. Yara was a gymnast, and at the time, she was preparing for a gymnastics display that was coming up in a few days. Now, she wasn't planning to practice that evening. All she was set to do was drop off a stereo with her instructor. So she said goodbye to her family and she left the home. By 7 p.m., Yara had not returned home. Her parents got very worried. At 11 after 7, Yara's mother called her cell phone and the call went straight to voicemail. Yara's father decided to call the police 20 minutes later. And in a lot of cases, you and I talk about the timing.
Sure.
As a parent, okay, how long before you get really, really worried? How long before you get worried to the point where you feel the need to call police? And I think you can see in this case, they were worried from Jump Street.
Yeah.
And, called the police within, 20 minutes of her not picking up her cell phone.
Yeah, pretty fast.
Yeah. They weren't waiting any time at all. The call was transferred to the public prosecutor's office in Bergamo, a city about 11 kilometers from Yara's home. The magistrate on duty was Letizia Ruggeri, a former police officer. She had worked as a magistrate for almost 15 years. And within just a few minutes, Ruggeri sent state and military police to Brembate di Sopra. Yara's gym instructor told the police that she saw Yara earlier that evening. She said she did some light training and then left the gym. The police learned that Yara had texted her friend Martina at 6:44 p.m. They planned to meet at 8 a.m. the next Sunday. This was the last time anyone had heard from her. So when we talk about this gym, it was really kind of a sports complex. There were a lot of entrances and exits that was in a lot of the research. A few people reported seeing men who they said might have been speaking to Yara standing near a red car. But, really besides that, they couldn't offer up much information.
Just the fact they saw some men standing by a red car that may or may not have been talking to Yara.
Yeah, not a lot to go on.
No.
Now, if you're the authorities, you want everything. We've said that many, many times.
Yeah, don't leave anything out. It could be important.
Yeah, now, it may not be enough for us to do anything with, but could it mean something later? If somebody else now says, hey, I saw a red car peel out and the license plate was ...
Yeah, now you have something you can go on.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
You put everything together at some point.
It's looking better, though, when you have that.
Sure. Magistrate Ruggeri called in some scent tracking dogs. They didn't find a trail leading back to Yara's home. What they did was track Yara's scent to a hamlet called Mapello. Police checked Yara's last phone signals, which showed that she was in Mapello at 6:49 p.m. So they had that information, but there was no sign of Yara. Over the next few days, investigators questioned Yara's family. Ruggeri wiretapped hundreds of phones. It was said that her investigative team attempted to trace about 15,000 phones that had passed through Mapello on November 26, 2010. That's a lot of phones.
It's a whole lot of phones.
And we'll get into it as this episode goes along, but there is talk about, invasion of privacy, what rights did some of these individuals have to do what they did. But one of these phones that they traced belonged to a man named Mohammed Fikri. In one of his wiretapped conversations from late November, an interpreter heard him say, "Forgive me, God, I didn't kill her." Okay, so they're tracking phones. We find out they're wiretapping people. For what reason? Because they had been in the area? Right? You're getting into, somewhat of a gray area here.
Very gray.
And a lot of people are going to, call that out. But at the same time, you're up against the clock.
Sure.
So I understand that part. And we have to be careful not to look at this case from the lens as we know it here in the United States.
Right.
Because we can't assume every time we go to another country that what would be completely out of bounds here is out of bounds in another country.
But you know what? There's a lot of people that would argue if that was their child, they would want that.
They wouldn't care.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. If you're the parents, please do whatever you have to do.
Right. If it's going to find my daughter, do it.
Now, if you're a citizen that has absolutely nothing to do with the case, you probably have a different viewpoint.
Sure.
More of, hey, why are you invading my privacy and wiretapping my cell phone conversation?
Yeah.
So this Fikri guy was working in a builder's yard in Mapello. By the time investigators learned this information, they found out that he had left town on a boat. On December 4th, 2010, the Italian police intercepted the boat and they arrested Fikri. They searched his van and found a bloody mattress. So this guy was held in jail for several weeks, but eventually cleared of any criminal charges. Apparently his statement had been mistranslated and the blood was determined to be what was called extraneous to the investigation.
Okay.
So I get it. Our bad. We mistranslated the phone call.
Sure.
It doesn't mean what we may have thought it meant, but can you please explain the bloody mattress in your van?
Yeah.
I get it. It's extraneous to the investigation, and maybe that was determined through DNA pretty quickly or I didn't see how, but you're going to have to explain it.
Yeah.
Either way.
You kind of still need an answer.
And I never saw that explanation. Maybe he had a very simple explanation for it. But Yara's case made national news. It was a big deal. The family was upset, though, by the constant presence of reporters outside their home. Yara's parents didn't make many statements, but when they did, they asked for privacy. Her family shared photos of her with the press so people would know what she looked like, but no one came forward with information. And this is where I think as the parents or family of a missing person, you're in what I would think would be obviously a very strange situation.
Okay.
On the one hand, you need the press.
You do.
You want to get the story out there.
Keep it out there.
And keep it out there. On the other hand, I can see how normal citizens would struggle with the constant media presence. You can't leave your house. They're snapping pictures all the time. It's what celebrities must go through day in, day out.
Right.
Well, normal people aren't used to that.
No.
And so there's this kind of strange push and pull there of, we need you guys, but can you back off a little bit?
Yeah, give us a little space.
Right. Be tough.
Yeah, because you don't want to tick them off.
Well, they ain't going to leave, but
yeah.
kind of hard to
That's true.
tick them off too bad, but I get what you're saying because you do need them.
You do, yeah.
After Christmas, Yara's parents went on television to ask the public for information. Her father, Fulvio, asked the public to help us return to normality. And the pain and the anguish, that these parents are going through, obviously that's anything but their normal. I mean, it's so far outside what they're used to that most of us, because we've not been in that situation,
right,
can't really even fully comprehend. On February 26, 2011, a man named Ilario Scotti was flying his radio-controlled plane in Chignolo di Solo, less than 10 miles from Yara's home. He thought it would be a good place to test out his plane. Hey, you got a new model plane, radio-controlled plane. I've never had one. Looks fun.
They do look fun.
I've thought about getting one of those drones. But my first thought has always been, no matter how much money I would spend on one of these, I would crash it on the first test flight. And it would be foobarred.
Yeah. They're pretty easy. I mean, I've had that one hovering over your house for quite a while now.
I just assumed you had an autopilot by now.
Yeah.
Because it never moves.
It's right where I want it.
So this guy's testing out his plane, but it wasn't working properly. So, he landed it in a patch of tall weeds. When he picked up the plane, he saw some rags on the ground. Then he saw shoes. It was a body. And the body was identified as Yara Gambirasio.
Just not what you're expecting when you're landing that plane.
No. And how many times have we talked about that? Just somebody walking through the woods, doing something that is just kind of a normal activity.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you stumble upon a dead body.
The disbelief you must have at first,
And then dealing with it later on.
Yeah.
I have to believe it's something that sticks with you for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that you can shake easily.
Well, because eventually then you're going to find out who this girl is, what happened, the circumstances. Yara's body was decomposed, but she was wearing the exact outfit she had on when she left home, a black bomber jacket and a Hello Kitty sweatshirt.
You got one of those. I've seen you wear it.
I have multiple Hello Kitty sweatshirts.
Yeah.
You only know about the one. But I want to go back to the state of her body because we said it was cold, right? It was 3 months though. November to February. So you're going to have some warmer days, I'm assuming. You're going to have some decomposition. The police found her iPod, house keys, phone battery, and the SIM card for her phone, but the phone was missing.
Okay. Someone felt the need to pull the SIM card out and just take the phone?
Well, to me, there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
Because the SIM card is what allows it to be tracked.
Yeah. So I guess they felt there was some value there, or they wanted that phone for another reason.
Possibly a trophy. We've seen stranger things in episodes. Professor Christina Cattaneo performed Yara's autopsy. Yara had a large head wound and stab wounds to her back, neck, and wrists, but it was said that the stab wounds weren't fatal. The autopsy also found that she was beaten, stabbed, and then actually died of exposure. There was no evidence of sexual assault, but Yara's bra was unhooked. There were stains on her clothing and what was described as a liquid that they later figured out contained male DNA.
Okay.
So in the reporting I saw, liquid was in quotes, so
Right.
You can make of that what you want. Cattaneo found traces of lime in Yara's respiratory passages. There was also jute, which is commonly used to make ropes on her clothes. The professor thought that the lime and jute suggested that the killer was some type of builder.
So obviously we're talking about some type of quick lime and not the fruit lime.
Yes. Yeah, that's the way that I took that as well. Obviously, it just did say lime, but when you talk about somebody being a builder, okay, having the lime that most of us think of as lime makes no sense.
No.
To equating to building, but something like quicklime does.
Sure.
Investigators found 2 DNA samples at the crime scene. One came from Yara's phone battery, and the other came from her gloves. The problem they had was that the DNA was not in any database. In April 2011, the commander of the Scientific Investigations Department called Ruggieri and told her that they found male DNA on Yara's underwear. So, talk about some good evidence. They got great evidence.
They do have great evidence.
You and I have done so many cases, especially on Unsolved, where they just got so little to work on or work with. Here we've got a ton. And DNA is awesome. We talk about it all the time. But what happens when, especially in 2010, 2011, you can't match it?
Yeah.
Well, you kind of hit a roadblock.
You do. But in a sense, you got to be somewhat optimistic because you have that DNA if you preserve it right.
Well, if you're filling up your toolbox, you want all of that. And even though you can't match it, as opposed to, showing up at the crime scene and there's nothing.
Right.
Like I said, I think this is amazing DNA to work off of. So they've got a suspect. They just don't know who the suspect is. So they named this suspect Ignato 1 or Unknown 1 in English. They just had to identify the man who killed Yara. Because I think if you're putting it together, pretty easy to believe that whoever left this DNA was also the killer.
I mean, investigators have to be happy.
I would think so. Or optimistic. I think
Right.
you used a perfect word there.
Right.
Got to be optimistic. We got something. It's just a matter of time. We're going to find this guy and we're going to make him pay. One Italian newspaper called the search for the killer a genetic soap opera. The police collected DNA from Yara's family, school acquaintances and friends, and people at the gym. The state police analyzed Yara's phone records, and they cross-referenced all mobile phones that had traveled through that region on November 26, 2010. And every person who matched the criteria was asked for a DNA sample.
It's a big population.
Well, we said earlier, right? They traced like 15,000 phones. So in a matter of months, the police collected thousands of DNA samples, but they still had no match. Do any of you out there feel like you need a little bit of extra excitement in your life? What if you had a go-to game that could instantly bring a hefty dose of fun to your day whenever you needed it? Life's too short for a day without fun. Get a thrill whenever you need it with Slotomania, the world's #1 free slots game. For me, this is a game that is very satisfying. I love the beautiful graphics. They have huge progressive jackpots. They also have a lot of fun freebies and mini games. There's really something new every day for endless variety. And there's nothing like the rush that you get when you win a big jackpot. I use it for a little bit of me time to relax each day. Start having fun right away. No insider knowledge or strategies required. Connect with millions of other slot fans on the Slotomania Facebook page, the biggest slots community in the world. Share your wins with the world. Get love. Get feedback from other members 24/7. When your day is feeling stale, just ask, what will today spend? If you're 21 or older, you can join millions of players around the world. Download Slotomania, the #1 free slots game on the App Store or Google Play Store, and get 1 million free coins. That's Slotomania on the App Store or Google Play Store for 1 million free coins. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Ruggieri learned that there was a nightclub called Quicksand near the area where Yara was found. She later said that since she knew killers often dump bodies in areas they know, she wanted to investigate club members. So in the spring of 2010, investigators collected DNA samples from Quicksand club members. The club kept detailed records because members had to use a card to get in. So police went and they tracked down all the people who went there regularly.
I mean, I'm loving how proactive they are.
I am too. I think there are some people who are going to think that, but then also, wow, there's very little privacy going on.
Yeah.
privacy of records, of information, whatever you want to call it. But they did get something. One of the DNA samples seemed very similar to unknown one. This DNA matched a man named Damiano Guarinani, but he was excluded as a suspect because apparently he was in South America. On November 26, 2010, geneticists determined he was a close relative of the killer. So investigators pieced together his family tree and learned that his mother, Aurora Zanni, worked for the Gambirasios for 10 years. So, we've talked about this, Gibbs, genetic genealogy. It's been solving cases now for a number of years. We're going back to 2011.
Yeah.
And they were using that or something very similar to that.
Impressive.
Yeah. They're tracing people's family trees based on DNA, stuff like that. Now, Zanni was no longer working for the Gambirasio family, but they still had a good relationship. She told a number of outlets that being investigated for murder was the worst thing that could happen to me. And I would have to agree.
Well, sure.
There are a lot of bad things that can happen to you. This is not a good one.
No.
Nobody wants to be squarely on police radar as possibly being a murderer. And we said that Damiano was excluded, but they still intercepted all of his calls. They intercepted Zanni's calls. They also followed them. They continued to question them. By the summer of 2011, Ruggieri couldn't find a connection to Yara's murder. She told a number of papers it was just a crazy coincidence. So that had to be frustrating because it seemed like a really good lead. Okay, we've got this guy. He's very close in DNA
right
to our suspect. It's not him, couldn't be him. He wasn't even in the country. He's not even on the continent at the time that the murder occurred. So it's got to be a close relative, right?
That would be the logic behind it.
But who is it? They can't figure it out. The team spent more time working on the family tree. But after a year with no answers, the public and politicians began criticizing Ruggieri, calling her incompetent, and asking for another person to be assigned to the case. I don't think this is outside of the norm. I think this happens quite a bit.
Sure.
If you've got a very high profile case and you're the person in charge, if you figure it out, you're the hero. But if too much time goes by and people aren't seeing the results that they think they should be seeing, well, now you're the GOAT.
Yeah, the frustration is setting in and
you're incompetent all of a sudden, even though you're not doing anything differently than you've ever done it.
No, but they're going to want to change.
The results just aren't there.
Right.
The same thing happens with a coach or whatever. Did the coach get bad all of a sudden? No. It's just a different situation. The players aren't gelling, whatever it is. It's time for somebody new.
Yep.
And that happens all the time.
Change of the guard.
Ruggieri's team spent more time working on this family tree. Now, they found hundreds of names, dates, places, and family relationships. They reconstructed the complete family tree all the way back to 1815.
Impressive.
I mean, you can't hear all of this and say, well, they're not putting in the work.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're, like I said earlier, they're being proactive. They're trying to gather as much information as they can.
Investigators traced the family origins to the tiny town of Gorno. They focused on Damiano's uncle, Giuseppe, who passed away in 1999. Police found his widow in September 2011. She handed over to them a box of his documents. Inside was a paper driver's license with a postage stamp attached. Police were able to collect 2 stamps that this man had licked, obviously depositing his saliva. DNA results showed that he was almost certainly the father of unknown suspect number 1.
Wow, getting closer.
It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
And it's one of the things that really drew me to this case, the level of DNA work and some of the things that we'll be talking about. Giuseppe was a bus driver. He married a woman named Laura Poli, and they had 3 children together, a daughter and 2 sons, Pier Paolo and Diego. But neither of his sons was a perfect match for unknown suspect number one. And they didn't have any children, neither of his two kids. So we talk about the roller coaster effect of an investigation, the highs. Hey, we're there. We've got this. We're about ready to crack the case.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you go over the hill and then you're in the low valley of we're at a dead end.
Right.
We don't know what we're doing.
What happened here?
We have all this information. It's just not making sense, or it's not leading us anywhere. Now, the theory they came up with was that Giuseppe Guarinani had to have an illegitimate child that had not been identified in the family tree. Ruggieri later told The Guardian it became an investigation within an investigation.
Yeah, it's another deep dive, but you need to go that direction to get the answers you need.
Investigators began searching small villages in northern Italy, looking for middle-aged women who might be the mother of Guarinoni's child. And it was said, Gibbs, that locals were very defensive at first. They didn't understand why police were asking for DNA from older women in these villages. People became afraid that one of their neighbors, somebody that they knew really, really well, was a murderer.
Yeah. I might be a little reserved to give up my DNA too.
Well, you would have very good reason to be reserved.
That's true.
Your DNA would light up like a War Games movie. I mean, there would just be dials and beeps and flashes all over the place. Match. But how strange would it be? You know, you live in a small town like I do. I live in a pretty small town, fairly small, bigger than what we're talking about here. But if the police just kind of were going door to door, asking women of a certain age for their DNA, there might be some backlash.
Yeah.
There might be people putting up quite a bit of a fight. Investigators learned that from the 1960s on, 2 weeks every May, Giuseppe Guarinoni traveled alone to a spa resort called Salice Terme outside Milan.
Oh, so maybe looking for a person with a January birthday?
Did you do that math in your head?
I did.
It's pretty impressive.
I actually counted on
It's
my fingers.
wrong. It's very wrong, but it's pretty impressive. I think you're like 8 months from May to January.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I think you're missing quite a little bit of time there.
Yeah, maybe it was a preemie baby.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In spring 2012, investigators looked through records and they tracked down all the women who stayed in the resort at the same time as Guarinoni. They also searched orphanages and homes for what they termed fallen women. They DNA tested single moms and women who moved out of mountain towns to Bergamo. So again, the one thing you can't question is the amount of work and kind of the stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word, that the law enforcement agencies are putting forth. The effort is there. Now, you can question their tactics and whether it's right or wrong, privacy-wise.
But again, if you are the family of the victim, you're
cheering them on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're seeing this or you're learning about, they're telling you this and you're like, yes, please do everything within your power. We'll talk about it, but was it really within their power? We'll find out. What investigators started to believe was that perhaps they shouldn't be looking for a single woman at all. Maybe the person they were looking for was a married woman who had an affair. Divorce wasn't even legalized in Italy until 1970. So you could see why maybe there could be a possible connection there.
I mean, he was married, so why wouldn't you believe a married woman would have an affair also?
Well, yeah, I guess at this point, let's not rule anything out, right? You know, as all this was going on, Yara's parents hired a freelance geneticist to review the police investigation and help explain it to them. I think that's actually a really smart idea.
Yes.
If you have the resources to do that, because obviously a lot of this stuff is very technical. So to have someone in your corner who can help translate what the police are doing makes sense. The geneticist requested the exhumation of Giuseppe Guarinoni's body. He thought that investigators were only able to compare 13 short tandem repeat regions of DNA. But it was said to confirm paternity, you needed at least 15 of these STR regions. So on March 7, 2013, Guarinoni's remains were exhumed. Experts were able to compare 29 STR regions, which meant they were now 100% certain that Giuseppe Guarinoni was the father of unknown suspect number 1. In early August 2013, the police seized a church visitor's book after they found a note confessing to the murder. The note was found at the Salvini di Rho Chapel Hospital. According to the local, the note said, "Tell the police of Bergamo that the killer of Yara Gambirasio was here. May God forgive me." There's so much in this case. It's almost like bombshell after bombshell.
Right.
Now we know 100% this guy's the father of the suspect. Now we still got to find him.
Yeah, but you probably were feeling pretty good already, but now you have to feel even better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But now you have this note that is thrown into the mix. Okay, what does it mean? Who was it left by? The police reviewed the visitor's book and hospital CCTV footage. Chapel staff didn't report noticing anything unusual. And the note was written just a few hours before it was found. On August 9th, 2013, Italian news outlet The Local reported that a chaplain received a confession letter. Father Antonio Citteri found the letter under the hospital chapel doormat. It said, "I wrote the message in the church book." And the letter was signed by a man named Mario. Okay. I mean, it's mystery after mystery.
Yeah.
If I didn't know the ending, I'd be very intrigued. But I do know the ending.
Well, I know the ending too.
But you're still intrigued.
Absolutely.
I've got you hooked. So then apparently Mario called the reception desk and said, "Hello, I'm called Mario. I'm sick with cancer. I'm the author of the message in the church about Yara. I wanted to know if the chaplain has received my letter." The problem is the confession letter didn't lead to any answers. So, was it real? Was it not real? Police had to really be scratching their heads again about what does the letter mean? Who's Mario?
Right.
What's going on? Towards the end of 2013, people started to figure out why the police were looking for a woman. You had a lot of gossip, rumors spreading throughout towns in northern Italy about just who might have had an affair. I can imagine people everywhere in every town talking over their fence line to their neighbor saying, "Who do you think it is?"
Yeah. I think it was, what's her name down around the corner?
Detective Marshal Giovanni Mocerino had completed an in-depth investigation into Guarinoni's life. He learned that the man lived in Ponteselva and worked as a bus driver for a bus company there and would have driven lots of women to work in the textile factories. Mocerino spoke to Guarinoni's former coworkers. One of the coworkers had spoken with the press in March 2013 and said that Guarinoni confessed to getting a young woman in trouble. One coworker said that Guarinoni was a ladies' man and drove lots of young women on his bus. He didn't reveal the name of the woman Guarinoni had an affair with, and at one point was at risk of being prosecuted for false testimony. According to Newsweek, people in Italy do not have the right to remain silent.
Oh, so if you have information, you have to share it?
You have to give it up. Now, I'm assuming that's still the case today. This case is only 12 years old,
right?
But I don't know that to be a fact. The police narrowed their list down to 532 women. In June 2014, a source told Mercioni the name of the woman they had been looking for, and that name was Esther Arzuffi. Esther was neighbors with Guarinoni in Ponteselva in the late 60s. In 1966, she married Gianni Bossetti, a man from a nearby village. Esther worked at a textile factory and rode the bus each day. She left Ponteselva in 1970, but she continued having the affair with Guarinoni. Then in the fall of 1970, she had twins, Massimo Bossetti, and a daughter.
So now they're closing in. Things are looking promising.
Yeah, they got to feel like they're making some really good progress. Esther's DNA was tested in July 2012, but apparently the geneticist made an error. Her DNA was compared to Yara rather than being compared to unknown suspect number 1. Investigators then tested her DNA again and found out that she was in fact the mother of unknown suspect number 1. So we know conclusively who the father is. We know conclusively who the mother is. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
Esther's son, Massimo Bossetti, was 42 years old and worked as a builder. He was married, had 3 kids, and lived in Mapello, where Yara's cell phone was last used. You know, for me, it's like I'm picturing a jigsaw puzzle of a picturesque Italian countryside.
Yeah.
And the more we talk, the more puzzle pieces fall into place. And we're getting close to having that picturesque landscape completed. On June 15th, 2014, Magistrate Ruggeri set up a fake roadblock to breathalyze drivers, but really hoping to catch Bossetti and get a DNA sample. Officers stopped him. He was driving with his wife and 3 children at the time. The officers pretended their machine didn't work the first time so that they could obtain 2 different samples. So pretty sneaky, sis.
Yeah.
Bossetti passed the breathalyzer test and left the area. So didn't think anything about it. Guy wasn't drinking. I'll take the breathalyzer and then I'll go on my way. But his DNA results came back overnight. Bossetti was unknown subject number 1. His DNA was found on Yara's body, and fibers from his van were found on her clothes. Bossetti's DNA was also found on Yara's underwear and leggings. You know, once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like they're 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. You know, my wife and I do a lot of shopping online, and we always use Rakuten. Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. We're talking fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Macy's, Nike, Sephora, Dyson, and Lowe's. And that's just to name a few. Pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cashback. Cashback is deposited directly into your PayPal account, or Rakuten can send you a check. You can even maximize your savings by stacking cash back on top of other deals, like store sales and coupons. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It really is a no-brainer. Membership is free, and it's easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cash back really adds up. Forensic geneticist Carlo Prevederi told the New York Times that the odds of someone else matching Bossetti's genetic profile are one person out of 2 billion of billions of billions.
Wow, it's a lot of billions.
Yeah, is that a real number? I don't know. It sounds like gibberish to me, but I'm sure for scientific people, that's some kind of real number.
Yeah. But I think we all get it, right? I mean, it's him.
It's a number bigger than I can comprehend. There were 21 compatible markers, and normally prosecutors only need 16, 17. So they had more than enough to arrest this guy. But Ruggieri didn't want to make an arrest yet. She wanted to follow Bossetti and study him, but she was worried that he would find out the police were onto him and take off. So on June 16th, 2016, Massimo Bossetti was arrested at work. On June 17th, he was charged with murder. Now, he claimed that he was at work when the crime occurred, but investigators found evidence that proved otherwise. Why is it always work? Why do these killers always say I was at work?
Well, they got to try to impress people like that.
No, it seems like such an easy thing to prove or disprove.
Yeah.
So if you're not telling the truth, why not say I was at a Little League baseball game? Pretty hard to tell.
Yeah.
Whether you were at a Little League baseball game.
But work, they're going to go to your work and see if anybody knows that you were actually there.
Yeah, I think they can prove that easier than some other things.
Right. Make it a little bit harder.
I was flying my radio-controlled plane out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Police found out that Bossetti often hung out near Yara's house. He parked his car behind her gym. He ate at a pizzeria at the end of Yara's street. He took UV showers at a tanning salon very close to her house.
All right, so he's getting a little tan in between.
Yeah, this guy sounds scarily a lot like you. I know you like to do your UV shower thing. You do eat a lot of pizza.
At a pizzeria.
I bet you that's good pizza, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
They also found out that his internet search history suggested that he was attracted to young girls. And that is never good. When the police are looking at you as a suspect and they find a bunch of child pornography, let's say, on your computer, and it just so happens that your DNA turns up on a young girl's dead body. I mean, it doesn't look good in the first place.
No, but he's got some explaining to do.
It really doesn't look good, coupled with the other stuff. His phone record showed that he was in Brimbate di Sapra on the evening Yara went missing. That's not good. Bossetti turned off his phone from 5:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m.
Suspicious.
That's a large chunk of time. They figured out that he last used his phone to call his brother. They also found out that a white truck, similar to the one he owned, was captured by security cameras at a gas station across from Yara's gym at 6 p.m. 10 minutes later, his truck was seen by the cameras at a bank very close to Yara's house. Okay, now that work alibi is not looking so good.
It is not.
But Bossetti insisted he was innocent. He said he usually went to Brimbate di Sapra to see his brother and accountant. And on the night of Yara's disappearance, he had passed through there on his way to work to avoid traffic.
Oh, the old, I got to avoid this traffic.
Yeah, there's work, there's traffic. Those are two standbys. Bossetti did admit to magistrates that in 2012, when he heard that the police were looking for the illegitimate son of a bus driver, he asked his mom if she knew Giuseppe Guarinoni. Strange, right?
Yeah, as I say, that seems really strange.
His attorney said that they planned to argue that his DNA only showed presence, not responsibility.
Well, I think you have to answer how his DNA was present.
Which I think is going to be really tough to do because we're talking about a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
What explanation are you going to try to conjure that is, number one, not going to be illegal?
Right.
And number two, makes any sense at all. But maybe if you think about it, illegal's okay for you if it gets you out from under a murder rap.
Yeah.
Bossetti argued that the DNA samples were inaccurate because of overexposure or cross-contamination. The police disagreed, said the sample was of excellent quality, 4 labs confirmed that the DNA belonged to Bossetti.
Well, it's hard to dispute. 4 labs.
That they all got it wrong, that there was cross-contamination in
Right.
all 4 labs. Yeah, I mean, the arguments are always going to be made, right, by the defense. Lieutenant Colonel Michel LaRusso told the press, despite exposure to the wind, rain, and snow, those 2 DNA traces were excellent, and we were able to exclude saliva and sperm, so that left blood. He said that although Yara wasn't raped, there are many other ways to sexually abuse a girl.
So it sounds like he's trying to counter what the defense argument's going to be.
Yeah, it sounds like he's trying to do it proactively. Bossetti's bail requests were all rejected. You know, and this case not only impacted Yara's family, but the family of the perpetrator as well. Garinone's widow learned that her husband had an affair and had 2 more children as a result of that affair.
Yeah, some shocking news.
Yeah, that's brutal to learn. Giovanni Bossetti found out none of his children were his own. His wife had another affair that resulted in a 3rd child.
So they've definitely had some arguments or conversations after all this came out.
Well, you talk about a gut punch. Number one, you learn that your wife's been having multiple affairs. And then you learn that these children that you love and you've been raising and taking care of, they're not yours.
Yeah.
But you can't switch that love off, right?
No, you can't.
But it does have to change something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be really tough to take. Bossetti's family also suffered. His defense wanted to portray him as a family man, but 2 men reported to magistrates that they had affairs with his wife, which hurt his public image.
Right.
Esther denied ever having an affair. She only spoke to a news outlet once. She told the Corriere della Sera, the DNA match was inexplicable and I did not have an affair with him unless my mind is playing me absurd tricks. Now, granted, some of these translations don't come out perfectly correct.
Right.
So
we can ballpark what they're saying.
Yeah, I think everybody will get the gist of it. You either had an affair or not. When you say I didn't have one, but you add on unless my mind is playing tricks on me,
Right.
seems like you're just leaving that window open there, as opposed to just coming out and saying absolutely unequivocally, no, I did not have an affair. She's not saying that.
No.
You know, speaking of Bossetti's family, the public was so outraged that they assaulted his twin sister, not once, but twice. On September 17th, 2014, his sister was hospitalized after strangers beat her unconscious in her parents' garage. This was brutal. She was kicked and punched repeatedly.
There was no reason for the public to do that to her. She was not involved.
No, in any way.
Yeah.
She had nothing to do with it. But just think about that. The public was so outraged, they took it out on this guy's sister.
Yeah.
Marita Comey, Bossetti's wife, spoke in a TV interview in October 2014 and said, they cannot explain to us how his DNA was found on Yara's clothes. I have never had suspicions about him. We always ate dinner all together at 7:30 p.m., at the latest 8 p.m., and he was always there, as he was that night. And I get that, Gibbs, no wife who loves her husband and trusts him wants to believe that he's capable of doing that. But to say that the guy is home at 7:38 for dinner every night, we know her last known communication was 6:44. So was there time? Was 45 minutes enough time for him to murder her and then be home and eat dinner like a normal husband and father? Yeah, I think it is. Now, I mentioned this up front and alluded to it a couple times during the episode. This case also sparked a lot of debate about privacy violations. Italy's privacy authority requested that the media use maximum respect when sharing people's personal details. The chief of the data protection agency said, not even the public interest legitimizes the media frenzy over intimate personal details, such as to create irreparable damage to family life and personal relations. I think we're past that.
I think so too.
Now, Ruggieri told the public that she never needed to get a court order because every single person submitted their DNA voluntarily.
If they're going to give it up voluntarily, then they're good.
Yeah, if that's truly how it happened. Now, I still have questions about some of the cell phone tracking, the wiretapping, and some of that. But in January 2015, a scientific advisor said in court that the DNA may not belong to Bossetti, but the evidence wasn't reassessed after that testimony. And some people have expressed doubt about the accuracy of the DNA match. People cite the fact that Esther Arzoufi's DNA was not a match the first time she was tested, but it was a match the second time. Sources have said that the second screening was only ordered after Guarinoni's friend Antonio Negroni told a police officer that the name of the woman he had an affair with was Esther Arzoufi. Lieutenant Colonel LaRusso said, "In the first screening, we tested only the nucleus in the DNA samples from the women, but we then discovered that the nucleus of the DNA on Yara's corpse was damaged and too poor for a match with the mother, although it was fine for a match with the father. So we ordered a second screening in which we tested the mitochondria that surround the nucleus of the DNA, which contains more female traces." All right, that sounds legitimate to me. I don't know whether or not what he's saying is true. I understand mitochondrial DNA, but as in every case, right? People say a lot of things.
They do.
That sound good. You got to figure out, is it true or not? According to Newsweek, Bossetti's lawyer said, "We, of course, asked to do our own DNA test because my client professes his innocence and is adamant that the DNA found on the deceased cannot therefore be his."
What else is he going to say?
Well, he could say he did it and that the DNA was his, but what's the advantage to him of doing that?
Right.
His trial started on July 3rd, 2015 in Bergamo, northern Italy. The trial lasted a year. His defense asked for the DNA evidence to be thrown out because they said it was not sufficient evidence to prove murder. Prosecutors detailed the 18,000 DNA samples they took and exactly how they found Giuseppe Guarinoni.
18,000.
That's a staggering number. Bossetti's wife testified to help establish an alibi for him. And his defense team proposed an alternate suspect, gym instructor Sylvia Bruna. Her blood was found on the sleeve of Yara's jacket. Sylvia's father testified that she cried on the night of Yara's disappearance. When questioned, Sylvia said she didn't remember this. She also couldn't answer why she texted her brother at the time of Yara's disappearance and then deleted the messages. Yara's sister Kiba testified on September 18th that she had never seen Massimo Bossetti before his arrest. She testified that there were no signs of danger, no signs of stalking. She also said, "If something were amiss, I would have known. If someone had approached her, she would have told me." Witness Ilario Scotti testified about finding Yara's body and said that a man stood at the edge of the field for about 15 minutes and watched him, but he left when he heard the police sirens.
We know how the killer likes to hang out by the body, so I'm not surprised.
Happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
Wants to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So we don't have every single piece of this trial, but you are hearing some conflicting information. What is powerful, I think, is the DNA. I think in cases like this, is it enough that the DNA is found there to prove murder? The defense is saying no, DNA on its own is not enough to prove that. But on July 1st, 2016, Massimo Bossetti was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Judges also revoked his parental rights to his children. According to The Guardian, Bossetti insisted he was innocent and said in court, "I might be stupid, an idiot, ignorant, but I'm not a killer." Yara's parents issued a statement through their lawyers. They said, "Now we know who it was, even if we know that no one will bring Yara back to us." In November 2019, Bossetti's lawyers requested a review of the DNA evidence. In March 2021, the court denied this request. And then just this January, on the 27th, Bossetti's third application for DNA analysis was rejected by the Court of Assizes of Bergamo. The defense had again requested to access and analyze the samples. So it was a defeat, but Bossetti's lawyer said he wouldn't give up and was already working on a new appeal. He's come out numerous times and said he does not believe that the DNA analysis that convicted Massimo was done correctly.
No doubt the DNA part of this case is huge.
Yeah, I would have to believe it's the biggest piece, right? That probably led to his conviction. Now you can't discount the CCTV and you know him being caught on camera, but what does all of that prove? He was in the area. Does it prove he murdered her? No, but when you look at all that, him saying he wasn't there, his DNA matches. Okay, you put all that together, it's pretty compelling stuff.
Yeah.
Gibbs, as we wrap this one up, the murder of Yara Gambirasio remains one of the most high-profile criminal cases in Italian history. We talked about the relentless pursuit by police of DNA samples, and it eventually paid off. They were able to find and arrest her killer. I don't think there's any doubt that Bossetti will continue appealing his conviction and sentence. His lawyer has said as much. But with the strong forensic and CCTV evidence against him, it seems unlikely that he, would be released from prison anytime soon, barring some kind of revelation about the DNA testing. That's what I think it would take.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it is either. I never say never on anything.
Of course, yeah.
But there would have to be some kind of bombshell. They made it up. It didn't match at all. There would have to be something like that. It would have to be some type of Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos. They just concocted all of the results type deal.
Right. One of those testing machines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's it for our case on Massimo Bossetti. It was a case I wanted to do just because I found some of the aspects of the case so fascinating. And in particular, the DNA angle.
Yeah.
The links they went to and the way they, traced the family tree, found the father, but then had to go find the mother because there was no record or history of a son who matched.
Well, these investigators certainly didn't give up.
No, they didn't. No, not at all. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Hi, guys. This is Susan from Illinois. I listen to you guys every day when I'm driving back and forth from work. And this morning I'm listening to the Lionel Tate episode. And I'm cracking up because Mike said, I don't know when you're 12 years old, if you can really grasp how it is to be an adult. And when you said, I don't think you're thinking about a 401k or diabetes or managing gout, I was dying. I don't know why. It just killed me. It is so true. No, I never thought about any of that stuff till I was in my late 20s. So I agree with it. But anyway, you guys are great. Thanks so much for always making me laugh and for having super interesting stories that you do such a great job presenting to everybody. I absolutely love your podcast. It's only the second one I've ever heard in my life, and I don't even listen to any others. You guys are great. It almost feels like you're friends. Thanks for all you do. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Should I tell her it's Illinois?
You can, but she lives there and she knows that's not correct.
Oh, okay.
As does 99.9% of the population. We've heard from some people who agree with you. It is a small percentage, though.
But it is still some people.
It is a percentage.
Exactly.
It is. But we appreciate all the kudos. It means a lot to us.
Sure does.
The interesting thing is those things I mentioned are all things I worry about.
Yeah.
All things that I actually deal with in my real life. Some of those I take medication for.
Hi, guys. This is Erica down in San Diego, and I was just listening to the Robert Garrow case when Gibby was talking about you guys' how crappy his chair is, and he was sitting on the thorn. I just wanted to tell you guys real quick. Have you guys ever seen, like, in an office setting, or there's, like, these clips that you hang on a board, but on the back of it has, like, these two prongs to stick into, like, a cork board or something, and then the front side of it is it's like a clip holder, so you can hang papers up or something. My husband went on a trip with some friends, and my friend cleared out his car, and he got into the back seat, and he sat down. He told me all this, and he sat down, and all of a sudden he was just in so much pain, and he made his friends, like, see what the hell was going on. And when he turned around, they pulled one of those out of his butt, and it's, like, the end of it, I mean, it's a solid inch, the two little prongs that hang out. But that's what it reminded me of. So I hope you guys are having a good day. Bye.
I'm having a better day now because that didn't happen to me.
That made my ass hurt.
It's a little bit. I had a girl in high school turn around too quick and stab me in the ass with an X-Acto knife.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Right through my Guess jeans that I had rolled up, pegged at the bottom.
That's what got you really upset.
With my mini Tonkas, ruined my Guess jeans.
Yeah.
No, it was upsetting that I had to walk down the hall with blood streaming down my backside and down my leg. She felt horrible, by the way.
As she should.
All right, I just got done listening to the Lionel Tate episode, and I had a couple things that I thought connected to that. My uncle was actually a pizza man in a small town in Iowa who was murdered by some young people. His name was Greg Wells. It was in Cedar Rapids or Marion, Iowa. I'd love if you'd cover it because that would bring attention to the case so that when these people go out for parole, they continue to serve time as his family misses him every day. Also, I want to point out that I am team Fergie wife because she's a teacher and so am I. So team Fergie's wife, as the school year is about to start up, go teachers. Keep your own time ticking. And you guys are me and my wife's Sunday night podcast. Have a good night.
Well, we love teachers.
Yeah.
You really love teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously I do. My dad was a teacher. My stepmom was a teacher. A lot of teacher in my family, along with my wife. The couple weeks leading up to school starting.
Yeah.
For my wife is a very hectic time. I'm assuming it is for all teachers, but for her, you know, it's really like, okay, number one, summer's ending.
Yeah.
My summer vacation is ending. But number two, it's like, I've got 8 million things I got to do. Don't talk to me.
Right.
Because I got to get all this stuff ready. So
yeah, she looks stressed.
Yeah. It's a very hectic time for her. And so I give her space. I do whatever she asks me to do. I'm on my best behavior.
You have to be.
I have to be. Or else it'll go 3 Mile Island around here real quickly. And we don't want that.
Never.
Nobody wants that.
I won't even come in if it's 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. So we appreciate the voicemail. I'm going to write that case down. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's not enough information out there, but we always look at them.
See what we can get.
We had some mailbag, Gibbs. Courtney Perry sent us in some Buc-ee's beef jerky.
Oh, you love that Buc-ee's.
Oh, got to have that Buc-ee's. She also sent some Harley chips.
Nice.
Don Chick sent in a couple of different serial killer coloring books for adults, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
She also set us up with colored pencils, washable markers. So, you know, after we are done recording, we can just sit down and do some coloring.
It's a nice rainy day activity.
Exactly. She also sent some Harley chips. So all of that's very much appreciated. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
How did the internet go from this?
You could actually find what you were looking for right away, bang,
to this?
I feel like I'm in hell.
Spoiler alert, it was not an accident. I'm Cory Doctorow, host of Who Broke the Internet from CBC's Understood. In this 4-part series, I'm going to tell you why the internet sucks now, whose fault it is, and my plan to fix it. Find Who Broke the Internet on whatever terrible app you get your podcasts.